hospital night shift was quiet, the usual hum of machines and distant footsteps the only sounds in the empty hallways. Nurses moved calmly, sharing soft words as they worked. It felt like any other night, until the automatic doors suddenly slid open with a soft whoosh. Max, a retired police German Shepherd, appeared. His coat was dirty and matted, and his eyes held a tired but determined look. In his mouth he carried a small bundle wrapped in an old, worn cloth. Nobody had expected him. The nurses stopped and stared, unsure what to do. One nurse, Sarah, stepped forward slowly, curiosity winning over caution. "Is that a baby?" she whispered, her voice shaky. Max gently dropped the bundle onto the floor. The cloth unwrapped to reveal a tiny, fragile infant struggling to breathe. His skin was pale and cold, and his chest rose and fell weakly. "Oh, my God," Sarah gasped, kneeling down. "We have to help him now." The emergency room instantly came alive. Nurses and doctors rushed in, grabbing equipment and preparing to stabilize the baby. Max stayed back near the entrance, watching quietly. Despite his obvious exhaustion, his eyes never left the infant. It was clear this was his mission, his purpose. Dr. Miller, the lead physician, called out, "Get oxygen flowing. Check his vitals. Fast." Sarah carefully lifted the baby and connected him to an oxygen mask. The heart monitor beeped faintly. "He's so small. How did Max even find him?" she murmured, eyes wide with disbelief. Max didn't bark or growl. He just stood there, calm but alert, as if understanding the weight of the moment. The whole team was focused, working urgently to save this tiny life. A nurse glanced at Max, whispering, "He brought this baby here. How did he know where to go?" Max's presence was quiet but powerful. The calm in his eyes seemed to balance the frantic energy around him. This dog had carried hope into a place of danger. Hours felt like minutes as the medical team fought to stabilize the baby. Max remained steady, watching over him like a guardian. The bond between the dog and the infant was invisible but undeniable. Sarah knelt beside Max and softly said, "You're a hero, Max. You saved this little one's life." Max's eyes met hers, tired but full of something unspoken, loyalty, love, and an unbreakable promise. This was no ordinary night. This was the night Max became more than a retired police dog. He became a silent guardian, a lifeline in the eye. Dark. The baby's faint breathing steadied, and the staff finally let out small sighs of relief. But they all knew the road ahead was still long. Max stayed by the entrance, unwavering, as if ready for whatever came next. And so, under the soft hospital lights, the story of Max and the fragile baby began. A story of hope, loyalty, and the quiet strength of a dog who refused to give up. The emergency room was now a whirlwind of urgency. Nurses and doctors moved fast, their voices low but sharp. The tiny baby fought for every breath, his chest rising and falling weakly under the bright hospital lights. Max stood quietly near the entrance, his body tired but his eyes never leaving the fragile infant. Dr. Miller's voice cut through the chaos. "We need to stabilize his breathing now. Sarah, get the ventilator ready." Sarah nodded, hands steady, but her face pale. "I can't believe this little guy made it here," she said softly. "How did Max even find us?" No one had an answer. The dog's calm presence seemed almost impossible, like something out of a story. But here he was, guarding this tiny life with all his strength. The baby's skin was cold to the touch, and nurses quickly wrapped him in warm blankets. "He's severely dehydrated," one nurse reported. "We need IV fluids, stat." Max shifted, slightly, his tired eyes locking on the baby's weak movements. "It's like he knows this baby needs him," Sarah whispered, reaching out to gently stroke Max's head. A doctor glanced over and said, "This dog has seen more than we can imagine. Look at him, steady and watchful." Max didn't respond with a bark or growl. Instead, he remained still, a silent guardian through the worst of it. His exhaustion was clear, but there was no sign he wanted to leave. The baby's heart monitor beeped faintly, each sound a reminder of how close he was to slipping away. "Come on, little one, hold on," Dr. Miller urged, adjusting the oxygen mask. Suddenly, a nurse asked, "Who does this dog belong to? Why would he bring a baby here?" The question hung in the air, unanswered. Max had no collar with an ID, and no one had seen him before tonight. Sarah looked at Max again and said, "You did the right thing, didn't you, boy?" Max's eyes seemed to plead, full of hope and something deeper, a promise that this wasn't over. The team worked. Tirelessly, every second mattered. The baby's breathing began to slow and even out, tiny signs of life pushing through the dark. Dr. Miller finally exhaled. "We've got a fragile miracle here. He's still critical, but he's fighting." Max remained at his post, still as a stone, guarding the baby like a knight protecting his kingdom. In that moment, everyone in the room understood. This dog was more than a pet. Max was a hero, a silent protector who had done the impossible. And as the baby's faint breath steadied, Max's tired eyes never left him, waiting for the next step in their journey. The baby was stable, but still in a fragile state. The emergency. Room buzzed with quiet urgency. Nurses and doctors kept close watch, but the question on everyone's mind was, where had Max come from? No one knew. And that mystery deepened when the police arrived. Officer Daniels stepped into the ER, his eyes narrowing as he took in the scene. "So this dog just showed up with the baby?" he asked, disbelief clear in his voice. "That's right," Sarah replied. "He walked in carrying the infant like he knew exactly what to do." Daniels knelt near Max, who stood by the entrance, his body tense. "Let me scan you, buddy," the officer said, holding out a chip scanner. Max took a step back, eyes sharp and wary. He didn't growl, but his whole body said no. One of the nurses whispered, "He's been trained. No ordinary stray would act like this." Daniels nodded slowly. "Probably a retired police dog. But why would he be out here alone? And why bring this baby?" Max's uneasy stance made it clear this was no ordinary situation. The dog wasn't just guarding the baby. He was protecting a secret. As the officers talked quietly among themselves, Sarah couldn't help but wonder aloud. Who left the baby with Max? And how did he find this hospital in the middle of the night? Another nurse shook her head, eyes wide. It's like Max knew this was the only place that could save him. The room grew heavy with questions. The baby's faint breaths reminded everyone that time was running out. But Max's silent presence offered something else, a hint of hope. Officer Daniels looked at the dog again. "You're holding on to something, aren't you, boy? Something bigger than all of us." Max didn't answer, but his eyes held a story waiting to be told, a story full of pain, loyalty, and sacrifice. The police began taking notes, planning their next move. Meanwhile, doctors kept working to stabilize the baby. Sarah knelt beside Max, speaking softly. "You've done your part, Max. Now we need to find the rest of the story." Max rested his head against her hand, tired but trusting. The bond between them was growing stronger by the minute. As the night deepened, the hospital became a place of quiet secrets. Everyone waited, hoping the shadows would soon reveal the truth behind Max's mission. Because this dog's loyalty wasn't just about saving a life. It was about uncovering a hidden past that no one saw coming. Max didn't hesitate. As the officers fastened a leash to his collar, he didn't pull or resist. Instead, he moved forward with purpose, leading them out of the hospital and into the dark streets. The city felt colder at night, shadows stretching long under flickering streetlights. The officers followed closely, their footsteps echoing alongside Max's steady pace. Officer Daniels glanced down at Max. "Where are you taking us, boy?" he asked quietly, almost afraid of the answer. Max's eyes never wavered. His steps were calm but deliberate, as if he remembered every turn and every street from years before. The officers exchanged uneasy looks but kept up. The houses grew older, the streets less familiar. The air felt heavy, thick with silence. Finally, Max stopped in front of a rundown house. Its paint was chipped, the porch sagging. The front door, was slightly ajar as if someone had left in a hurry. "This must be it," Daniel said softly. "Stay alert, team." Inside, the house smelled stale, with dust floating in the faint beams from their flashlights. Max led them through cluttered rooms filled with broken furniture and empty food containers. The place spoke of hard times, of a family pushed to the edge. Daniels whispered, "This home tells a story all on its own. Neglect, pain, maybe even fear." Max paused at the back of the house near a small door, his paws scratched lightly against the floor. The officers opened the door slowly, revealing a dim, lonely room with an old, dusty crib in the corner. Sarah stepped forward, voice breaking. "This is where the baby was left." Max sniffed around the crib, his body tense but watchful. After the long walk and struggle, he finally let himself rest beside the crib. His eyes, though tired, still burned with purpose. One officer murmured, "Look at him, still guarding after all this." As the officers searched the room, they found signs of a rushed departure. A dirty dog bowl, scattered toys, and worn blankets. It was clear someone had left in a panic. Daniels held up a crumpled envelope found on the table. "There's a letter. Here," he said, unfolding the paper carefully. The voice of one officer read aloud, "I no longer have the strength to care for him. Everything is falling apart. All I have left is Max. I trust him to do the right thing. I hope someone forgives me." A heavy silence fell. The words echoed the heartbreak lingering in the house. Sarah knelt next to Max, tears in her eyes. "You've carried more than just a baby, haven't you?" Max rested his head on the floor, exhausted but steady, a loyal protector who had done everything he could. The mystery of the broken home and the desperate letter was now part of their story, and Max's silent mission was far from over. The quiet of the abandoned house felt heavier now. The officers stood around the dusty crib, in the dim back room. The baby had been here. The weight of that fact pressed on everyone's hearts. Max lay nearby, his body worn and exhausted, but his eyes never left the crib. He was still watching, still guarding. Officer Daniels broke the silence, holding the crumpled letter carefully. "Listen to this," he said, voice low. "I no longer have the strength to care for him. Everything around me is falling apart. All I have left is Max. I trust him to do the right thing. I hope that one day someone will forgive me." The words hung in the air like a sad melody. The pain behind them was raw and real. The officers looked at each other, feeling the weight of the story behind the letter. Sarah stepped closer to Max, her voice soft but shaking. "You carried more than just a baby, didn't you, Max? You carried a mother's love, her fear, her hope." Max lifted his head slightly, as if he understood every word. His body was tired, his breaths heavy, but his eyes were sharp and steady. He had given everything to protect that child. Another officer ran his hand along the dusty crib. "This place, it tells a story of struggle and heartbreak. Someone left in a hurry, scared and desperate. They found signs everywhere. Empty. Food bowls, torn blankets, forgotten toys scattered on the floor. It was clear life here had been hard and then suddenly stopped." Daniels looked at Max with respect. "You didn't just bring the baby here, you brought him home even when you were at your limit." Max let out a soft whine, tired but calm, as if saying, "I had to." Sarah knelt down beside him and whispered, "You're a true hero, Max. You did the impossible." Despite his exhaustion, Max stayed alert. He wasn't just resting, he was still guarding, still protecting. The officers moved carefully through the house, piecing together the fragments of a broken life. The crib was empty now, but the love and sacrifice it represented filled the room. Max's silent sacrifice was clear. He had given his strength to carry hope through the darkest night, and though his body was worn, his spirit remained unbroken. Because sometimes the greatest heroes are the ones who don't speak, but simply stand watch, and Max was one of those heroes. The house was empty now, but the story inside it was far from over. Outside, officers canvassed the neighborhood, knocking on doors and asking questions. They needed to find the baby's mother, The woman who had trusted Max with her child's life. An elderly man answered one of the doors, leaning heavily on his cane. "You're looking for Rachel, right?" he asked slowly. "I remember her. She had that big dog, Max, always by her side." "What was she like?" Officer Daniels asked, notebook ready. The man sighed. "She was struggling. Life wasn't kind to her. I saw her with the baby a few months back, but then one day she just disappeared. Left the house without a word." Sarah listened quietly, her heart aching. "Did she say anything? Did she ask for help?" "No," the man replied. "She was too proud, too scared. But that dog, Max, he was always there, like a guardian angel." As they moved through the neighborhood, more neighbors shared similar stories. A young woman said, "Rachel looked worn down, like she was carrying the weight of the world. That dog never left her side." Another neighbor added, "I heard she lost her job. Money ran out. She was trying to keep it together, but it wasn't easy." The officers pieced together a picture of a mother overwhelmed by hardship, doing everything she could to protect her son. Back at the hospital, Sarah stared at Max. "You saved that baby from a home full of pain," she whispered. "But what about Rachel? Where is she now?" Days passed with no sign of Rachel. The uncertainty weighed heavy on everyone. Then, finally, a call came in. A woman matching Rachel's description was found wandering near a park, exhausted and alone. Officers rushed to the scene. Daniels approached her gently. "Rachel, we found your son. He's safe and being cared for." Her eyes widened with shock, tears spilling down her face. "Noah, is he alive?" she stammered. "Yes," Daniels assured. "He's fighting, and so are you." Rachel collapsed into sobs, her body trembling. "I was so scared I didn't know what else to do." Sarah knelt beside her, holding her hand. "You're not alone anymore. We're here to help." Max stood quietly nearby, his loyal eyes watching over them all. In that moment, the pain and fear Rachel had carried began to lift, replaced by a flicker of hope. Because sometimes, even in the darkest times, love finds a way to shine through. And with Max by their side, that hope was stronger than ever. Rachel sat motionless on a cold park bench, the first light of dawn casting pale colors over the empty paths. Her eyes were hollow, her face worn by days of worry and exhaustion. When the officers found her, she barely recognized the world around her. Officer Daniels approached carefully, his voice soft. "Rachel, we found your son. He's at the hospital and safe." Her head lifted slowly, disbelief filling her eyes. "Noah, is he alive?" she whispered, voice breaking. "Yes," Daniels said gently. "He's fighting, just like you." Tears welled and spilled down Rachel's cheeks. "I didn't know where else to go. Everything fell apart," she admitted, voice trembling. "Max, he never left me or Noah. When I couldn't do more, I trusted him." At the hospital, Rachel was carefully helped inside. Max walked quietly beside her, loyal and steady like a guardian angel. She looked down at the dog and whispered, "You saved my baby. You saved us." Inside the pediatric unit, Rachel's breath caught as she saw Noah lying in the crib, surrounded by monitors and soft blankets. His skin no longer pale, his breathing steady. She reached out, her hands trembling as she touched his tiny face. "Noah, my baby," she whispered. "We're going to be okay now." Max stayed close, eyes alert and calm. He seemed to understand the weight of the moment, a silent witness to a mother's love and a dog's unbreakable loyalty. Doctors and nurses worked around them, but the room felt quiet, full of something deeper than medicine. It was hope. Sarah came over and smiled. Softly, "He's stable, Rachel. We'll keep watching him." Rachel nodded, tears still falling. "I lost my way, but Max, he showed me the way back." Officer Daniels stood nearby, watching the reunion. "It's incredible," he said quietly. A dog brought a child to safety and led us to his mother. Rachel looked at Max and said, "You never gave up on us." Max wagged his tail slightly as if to say, "I always will." In the soft morning light, the three of them, mother, child, and dog, shared a moment of healing. A moment born from pain, love, and unwavering loyalty. Their journey was far from over, but together, they had found a new beginning. And with Max watching over them, hope was alive once again. Noah's tiny chest rose and fell more steadily now. Each breath was a victory. The hospital room was quieter than before, filled with soft sounds of machines and gentle voices. Rachel sat by her son's bedside, her hand resting lightly on his small arm. She looked tired, but a flicker of hope had returned to her eyes. Sarah approached gently, carrying a tray. "Noah's doing better today. His strength is coming back," she said with a warm smile. Rachel nodded, barely able to believe it. "Thank you," she whispered. "I never thought I'd see this day." Max lay nearby, curled up but alert. His eyes followed every movement in the room. He was still the silent guardian, watching over his family without a sound. Rachel looked down at Max and said softly, "You saved him. You saved us all." Outside the hospital, the community had started to hear the story. Neighbors brought clothes, toys, even food. Volunteers checked in on Rachel, offering help and encouragement. One woman handed Rachel a small bundle. "You're not alone anymore," she said kindly. "We're here to help." Rachel smiled weakly, tears threatening to fall. "It means everything," she replied. Days turned into weeks. Noah grew stronger, gaining weight and color. Rachel began to feel like herself again. She started planning for their future, a fresh start with Max by her side. At night, when the hospital quieted down, Max would sit close to Rachel, his head resting gently on her lap. His presence was a steady comfort, a reminder that they had survived the worst. One evening, Rachel whispered, "Max, I don't know how to thank you. You never left us." Max looked up, his eyes calm and wise. It was as if he understood every word. Doctors and nurses often stopped by to check on Noah, amazed by his progress. "This little guy is a fighter," Dr. Miller said once, "and he has an incredible guardian angel." Rachel's heart swelled with gratitude. She knew it was more than medicine that had saved her son. It was the love and loyalty of a dog who refused to give up. Max had become more than a pet. He was family. Their protector. Their hope. And as Rachel held Noah close, she finally believed in new beginnings. Because sometimes, healing starts with a silent, watchful guardian. And with Max there, nothing seemed impossible anymore. Max's story quickly spread, beyond the hospital walls. What began as a quiet night transformed into a beacon of hope for many. People were touched by the loyal dog who carried a baby to safety, refusing to give up despite his own exhaustion. News crews arrived, eager to share Max's incredible journey. "This dog saved a life," one reporter said, voice filled with awe. "His loyalty and courage remind us all of the power of love." Rachel watched as strangers sent gifts and letters touched by Max's silent heroism. "I can't believe how much hope he's given us," she said softly, eyes shining with gratitude. In the hospital, nurses whispered about Max's calm presence during the hardest moments. "He didn't just protect Noah," Sarah said. "He protected all of us, reminding us why we do this work." Community members gathered, inspired by the story. A local shop owner said, "Max's loyalty shows what true sacrifice looks like. It's a lesson for everyone." Max, though exhausted, remained humble. He stayed close to Rachel and Noah, his steady watch a quiet comfort in the days that followed. One afternoon, a group of children visited the hospital with handmade cards for Max. "He's our hero," one child exclaimed, beaming. Max wagged, his tail gently, eyes full of warmth. Officer Daniels spoke to a crowd at a community event. Max showed us all that heroism doesn't always come with words or medals. Sometimes it's a quiet, unwavering loyalty. Rachel smiled as she looked at Max. You changed our lives, Max. You gave us a second chance. Max's eyes met hers, calm and wise. It was clear he understood the difference he'd made. The story of a dog who carried hope through darkness reminded everyone that sometimes the strongest heroes don't speak at all. And Max, with his silent courage and loving heart, was the greatest hero of all. His loyalty became a symbol, a light shining in the darkest moments, showing the world the true meaning of love and sacrifice. And as Rachel, Noah, and Max moved forward together, their bond grew stronger, carrying the promise of better days. Because heroes don't always wear badges. Sometimes they simply walk beside us, quietly watching over the ones they love. The hospital doors opened to the warm morning sun as Rachel carried Noah in her arms, stepping into a new chapter of their lives. Max walked steadily beside them, his eyes alert, guarding them as he always had. His mission to save Noah was complete, but his loyalty was far from over. Rachel looked down at Noah and smiled softly. We made it, Max. Thanks to you, we have a chance to start over. Her voice was filled with emotion, relief, gratitude, and hope all mixed together. Max glanced up at her with calm eyes as if saying, I knew we would. Their new home was humble, but it was filled with the promise of healing. Neighbors welcomed them with open arms, bringing food, clothes, and kindness. For the first time in a long while, Rachel felt surrounded by support. One morning, as Noah crawled across the floor, his bright eyes full of wonder, Rachel sat beside Max and whispered, We're going to be okay, together. Max rested his head on her lap, a quiet comfort in a world still full of challenges. He had carried them through darkness, and now he was helping them find light. Rachel knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be hard days, moments of doubt and struggles to overcome. But with Max's unwavering presence and Noah's growing strength, she felt ready to face anything. At night, Max lay near Noah's crib, always watchful. His calmness was a shield for the family, a reminder that love could survive even the darkest storms. One afternoon, Rachel spoke softly to Max. You gave us everything, Max. You saved my son, and you saved me. Max wagged his tail gently, as if understanding the depth of her words. He was more than a dog. He was a guardian, a friend, and a symbol of hope. Their bond, forged in pain and sacrifice, was unbreakable. No matter what challenges came next, they would face them together. Because sometimes, the strongest families are those built not just by blood, but by love and loyalty. And Max, the silent guardian, had brought them all home. As the sun set on their first day in this new life, Rachel whispered, Thank you, Max, for everything. Max's eyes glimmered in the fading light, a quiet promise that he would always be there, watching, protecting, loving. A new beginning wasn't just a fresh start. It was a testament to the power of hope, the strength of family, and the extraordinary love of a dog who never gave up.